And it was an incredible thing, wasn't it, to promote the Northwest, Greater Manchester particularly, via United Restream at that time. And you've been on the journey with us,
absolutely,
in terms of Greater Manchester, the Northwest, where we're going, and you've really helped us promote what we're all about, and getting the energy into this devolution journey that we're on. 20 years on, the BBC, in my view, is in an immeasurably stronger position because there are different accents on the airwaves. There's different feel to their content because of Media City and because that it's brought talent through that otherwise wouldn't have had its opportunity. The national broadcaster, I would say, is in a stronger position. AI could be brilliant and will be brilliant, I think, in terms of the amazing advances it will bring. But let's not let the content of creators just be, hoovered up. You embody what Greater Manchester is about. It's more than a business. It's a belief, I think, isn't it, in the place and what we're trying to build it into. So it's not just like a check. It's more than that, and you embody that.
That was good. That was really good.
I never fully understand why you do that in your game. But anyway,
it's good. Yeah. Well, basically, my audio is going into that camera. Your audio is going into that camera.
Right.
Then when they edit these three cameras together, they have to sync my audio and your audio together.
I got you.
So they do it all kind of like that to make it work, or else we're talking like a Hong Kong movie. Which is crazy. So, good. Well, Andy, welcome to the set.
Thank you, Colin.
Badgering Coombs,
where the badgers all hung out, but now I know.
I know, yeah. I mean, we're delighted that you've taken some time out of your busy life to come and see us. We're very honoured. But I guess the first thing, we just chit chat basically. There's no agenda here. It's just a chat about how you met us. When did we first come into your life, I guess, is the first question, really.
I'm trying to remember exactly when.
There was a mayor's battle, I think.
DJ battle, was that the mate?
On United Restream when we did the lockdown stuff.
I mean, I was just trying to pinpoint the exact moment, but that was a time, wasn't it? 5 years ago, and take your head back to that. And it was an incredible thing, wasn't it, to promote the Northwest, Greater Manchester particularly, via United Restream at that time, and it was.
What was it like being told that you were going to DJ battle?
Well, it was my idea, so right, okay. I think we were all thinking about, God, what do we do to put some different stuff on here, and having that sort of remote battle with the Mayor of Liverpool and my dog involved, and
I remember.
It was all a bit different, wasn't it?
I mean, remember, I think we went to Steve's first. I think we were in Steve's back garden first, and I took lots of photographs of his set list, and I was sending them all over the group. So
we know where your loyalty's like.
Listen, we're based in Manchester, Andy, so there's definitely I'm not going to, my biasness towards you is...
It's good fun though, isn't it? Because I think you've been on the journey with us.
Absolutely.
In terms of Greater Manchester, the Northwest, where we're going, and you've really helped us promote what we're all about, and getting the energy into this devolution journey that we're on. It's great, isn't it? It's just been a good place to be, hasn't it, in the last few years?
And we look at what we did there during lockdown, and that was the thing really, that we needed to communicate to an audience that didn't necessarily sit on traditional news outlets, and they didn't watch the news at 6 to be told what to do. They needed a different way, and we were communicating them in that different way. And hats off to you that you recognised that quite quickly, that we had to communicate in a different way. And we talk about the North a lot as well. I get very frustrated as well as a business up in the North that there is a massive divide, especially in the media industry, that everybody thinks that the media industry is a South London-based thing. Yeah. We have got some incredible talent up here. Yeah. Digital talent up here is just phenomenal. Does it frustrate you at all, or do you see shoots of opportunity that we're actually getting the message through now? And when we look at United Restream and what we did at Stream GM and all that stuff, a lot of other places in the country couldn't do it, and we did it. You know what I mean? So
that's the good bit, isn't it? As in all things, we do it differently, don't we?
Absolutely.
We do things differently here, and you've shown that in terms of what we did and how we sort of bossed the pandemic moment from a content point of view, because we needed to give people a lift, didn't we? We needed to give people something different, and credit to Sasha, who was a big part of making all of that happen. So I think that's what we're all about, and they need some disruption, don't they? The established industry, because they are too southern based, aren't they? You know, I always remember there was a time when I was one of my 2 failed bids to be leader of the Labour Party. I went to Portland Place to do a BBC interview with Jeremy Vine, and I was asked in advance to send them what songs I wanted to play, because I had like 3 songs or whatever. So I said, Take Over the World by the Cortinas, you know, standing to be Labour leader. And can't play that. I said, what do you mean can't play that? Oh, and they're not on our list. They're kind of a more regional. I said, that is out of order. And I always remember that. You know, the established media had that kind of, you know, their music or whatever. But
I was going to say, does it frustrate? I mean, it frustrates me when I think that they'll send somebody up to, you know, by train or by plane or whatever to operate an EVS or a piece of kit or whatever, that we have the talent here to do it. And we know that when you look at Salford University, Manchester, UCFB, those colleges around us as well, there's some amazing talent coming out of there that can do all of that already.
I see it. There's that UTC over the way there. You know, go in there and it's just unbelievable, the talent that's there. We've got the School of Digital Arts at Manchester Metropolitan University. They're doing incredible things. We're teeming with talent, aren't we? And in many ways, streetwise talent that doesn't see it in the same way and actually brings different perspectives to things. I go back, what is it now? God, this is making me feel really old, but it's almost 20 years since I was the Culture Secretary and this place, Media City, was just coming through. And the conversations I used to have with some of those people in the BBC. Oh, you can't buy a latte in Salford and nowhere sells The Guardian and blah, blah, blah. I mean, honestly, they came through gritted teeth, some of them. And yeah, I would say, looking 20 years on, the BBC, in my view, is in an immeasurably stronger position because there are different accents on the airwaves. You know, there's different feel to their content. If they'd stayed in their ivory tower down there, I think they'd have been much more struggling now for legitimacy in the whole of the country. But because of Media City and because that it's brought talent through that otherwise wouldn't have had its opportunity, the national broadcaster, I would say, is in a stronger position. I hope they recognise that. I'm not sure all of them do.
Well, we talk a lot about alternative media theory and alternative media strategies, and we look at things like, I mean, obviously, you look far too young to know all this. Obviously, I don't know how you do it, but you know, when you look at pirate radio and you look at fanzines and you look at those alternative journeys that people have, that subculture and all that kind of alternative approach. When you look at, I mean, you're an Evertonian fan, aren't you? So, you know, you think about that photocopied thing that used to get sold for 50p. It didn't matter what it looked like. Yeah. It was about the content and the journey that group, that culture, that subgroup that went on it. It feels like with digital media and all the things that we do, we have a massive opportunity to influence those mainstream media outlets to change their ways. Yeah. But I don't know if they are.
I think so. I was being maybe a little harsh on the BBC there because they have now brought, the 1 o'clock news and, Match of the Day, and there's a lot. They're basing more and more here, and I think they do get it. But there's more to be done in that space, isn't there? And I think you're absolutely right, because people here didn't have much. There was a culture of everyone, doing and helping each other to get it done. I know many people involved in the fanzine movement. Andy Mitten, for instance, who has run United We Stand for a long time. He's a prime example of it. But the friends, my Everton friends, when skies are grey, and I was in London yesterday, and a photographer was there, and he lived in Manchester in the 80s, and he's from London, but he says, I miss that. Always when you said in Manchester, can someone help me with this record label or this gig I'm putting on? Oh yeah, what can we? He said, there's just that culture of everybody sort of helping each other and making it all happen. And he says, we miss a bit of that in London. But that is our thing, isn't it? And long may it be our thing, but it needs to influence, obviously, the mainstream more.
So I came up to Manchester from London back in a long time ago as well. I'm old as well. So, But I used to remember, you know, the days of the Hacienda, and I remember we had the first Manchester International Festival here.
Did you get in very often, or were you,
a couple of times? Yeah, I used to go with Sasha, so Sasha got me in, so it was all right. Yeah,
I always say I got turned away more than I got in. They had like a fashion police on the door, didn't they? They didn't like the look of you. No, you're not.
Sorry, you can't.
But I did get in. It
was a phenomenal place. But I just used to remember, like I remember driving around Manchester back in those early 90s, and we had the first Manchester International Festival.
Yeah.
And I remember I was working at the airport at the time, so I was volunteering on that. Yeah. And I remember picking up the likes of Salman Rushdie, Dennis Hopper, in the back of the car from the airport, taking them to some random side street in Manchester. But there just seemed to be this huge pot of creativity just happening. And I remember I was driving and I was listening to Buzz FM. For those that don't know, it's a pirate radio station out of Trafford somewhere. Nobody knows where it is. And I had Tony Wilson in the back of the car and his son. And
good name dropping going on.
I know, I'm doing my best. But it was that. Ollie was like, oh yeah, I've not to Buzz FM, and then within like half an hour later he was on talking on this, and I was just like, this is Manchester. This is it. And I felt part of something.
Oh, definitely. You know, bear in mind, I was 19 in 1989, doing my first summer job with my dad on Portland Street. I was home from my first year at university. And I'm in and out of Piccadilly Records, eating my lunch in Piccadilly Gardens, wandering into Affleck's, and I was just thinking, oh, is this what it's always like? You know, I bought tickets to watch the Stone Roses at the Empress Ballroom in Piccadilly Records, and it was amazing because it just had this feeling that anything could happen at any moment in time. And you look back and think, will it always be like that? And actually, it isn't always like that. You've got to make it like that, haven't you? And Tony was brilliant for that, wasn't he? He just created a sort of climate and a permission for everyone to be like that. And I try my best to sort of emulate that, you know, by putting on it with you and events, the mad things that we do, lockdown, United We Stream, everything. It's about that thing. You just create a space, and then the talent of this place will fill it, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you about the pressure, not the pressure, but the responsibility that you have as the gaffer of Make Great Manchester, you know, all that kind of thing. There's a responsibility to make sure that, I guess, Manchester doesn't lose its soul. I think. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Does that weigh heavy on you?
Yes, definitely. Because I, go back to how I was just, if you like, intoxicated with Manchester at that. I mean that in a legal in a sort of metaphorical sense, but it was just mesmerising to be around the place at that time. But as I say, everyone was around, and even the kind of big names were being the Hacienda, and no one was overly grand or anything. It was just brilliant, and I'm always really conscious that that made us who we are. And if you forget that, it's always the kind of same thing with football. I'm big on my football, and if football clubs ever forget that, why does everyone love it so much? It's because of what it was and the kind of the culture around it. And if you kind of drive that out and you gentrify overly so and push everyone out, you kill what made it great in the first place. And as a city region, we're growing strongly at the moment, changing, lots of opportunity coming in, but we have to work hard to keep the soul of the place intact and not let those small venues go. Make sure there's housing people can afford. And I think, to be fair, the people who had to kind of lift this place up in the 90s just had to get the investment coming in. But now it is coming in. I think we need to be quite resolute in saying, yes, there can be some of that, but this place needs always to be for everybody.
That creativity that we have, and that's the point, isn't it? That you don't want to sanitise it all, and it just becomes another London.
Definitely not.
We don't want to become another London, do we?
I was in London yesterday, and I just was hearing somebody talking about, I think it's Borough Market, which is just getting replaced now to a skyscraper. And obviously I can't be against skyscrapers with the way Manchester is changing, but it's not letting it replace everything. The Northern Quarter is a kind of unique place, isn't it? It's becoming a sort of unique location in and of itself, with some of the things that are there, the incredible sort of atmosphere around it. And it has to be protected. And I know the leader of Manchester City Council, Bev Craig, feels the same as me. It's a good thing I think in some ways that there's a generation of people who, like me, came here in the 90s and sort of absorbed it all and are now in positions of leadership. You know, I think I can say, you know, without fear of any contradiction, people like Bev, Mayor Paul Dennett in Salford, the other leaders, you know, we grew up getting that, if you know what I mean. And so, you know, we're really conscious of protecting it.
How much of a role, how much of an important role do companies like Badgering Coombs, leaders, business leaders, like those companies, especially those ones that get involved with the charity as well, how important is it for those organisations to help drive and steer Manchester's growth as well? It shouldn't just be down to you, should it? It's not. You can't just be. You're a busy man.
The B is the symbol for a reason, isn't it? Because that says to me that nobody's more important than anyone else, and we're all doing our little bit, aren't we? And keep spilling my tea all over your carpet. We're all doing our bit, aren't we? And we all have a role to play. And to me, you know, I've tried to say since I came in as mayor, I operate on a place first rather than party first approach. But I am a politician, and we do believe in giving back, and you know, nobody left behind here. You know, we don't walk on by on the other side of the road. And what I'm trying to create is that spirit, which is, I think, has always been the spirit of this place, and embodied by every organisation, public sector, private sector, community sector. We're all pro-business, we're all pro-entrepreneurial, we're all about people having the chance for their talent to shine. But at the same time, we're always all about the common good as well, aren't we? And everyone in this place being part of it and being supported to be part of it. So that's us, I think. That is the unique identity of Manchester. And it's embodied, and because it is embodied by private organisations as well as public and community and voluntary organisations, that's what makes the difference when the whole place is like facing in the same direction, pulling in the same direction. That's the power of it. I was saying this in the speech I made in London yesterday. That is the power of this place, and I don't think anywhere else has got it in quite the same way. I was
going to say, why does London? I mean, I'm not here to bash London because I came up from London, but it just doesn't seem to have the same approach that we do. It's so just blinkered, and everyone's working hard, and nobody's got time to stop and say hello, have they? It's that sense of place that we talk about.
There is, because like, you know, you were saying you came from London, and you know, I in many ways came down the M62 here in my early years because my dad got a job here, and you know, loads of people, and more so, come to study, and you know, increasingly coming to work here from London. We've got a net inflow now of young Londoners, would you believe, into Manchester to work. It's all about those words of Tony Walsh, isn't it? On the wall in the changing room in the Etihad. Some are born here, some are drawn here, but all call it home. I mean, that's it, isn't it? In a nutshell, that is it.
A guy came up here and married a northerner, so you know what I mean. I got suckered right into the whole thing. So,
yeah.
But I think that's it. I remember being down south when I was younger, and I was listening to Happy Mondays. I was listening to all that music at the time, and I thought, this is where I'm supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It makes you sound like I'm anti-South. I'm not, you know. But I think when you were growing up here in the 80s, you were conscious that we didn't have very much. You know, it was bleak at times. You know, where we're sitting now, God, you know, this wasn't good. Or where the Etihad is, you know, it was not great. But we dragged ourselves up with football, and then the music that came through, particularly in the mid 80s and then into the late 80s, and that kind of sense of not having much, but then starting to, I think, made the identity powerful, and you know, gave a feeling of belonging. And because for me, you know, here's my name drop. You've been name dropping. I'll drop my own in here. I was lucky enough to see the Smiths at Salford University in 1986 on the Queen is Dead tour. So I had my poster at Salford Lads Club. I go to another name drop, Cambridge University, when I got there, unbelievably, but somehow did, from my school in the mid 80s. And I had that poster on the wall, and I would kind of have my room in college, and people come in, all of these like private school kids. Oh wow, you got that poster. I was like, all right, have you ever been to that place? Yeah. No, really? And I said, well, I've seen them live. What? And in the line of one of the Smiths songs, what was the song, the lyric from Hand in Glove? Yes, we may be hidden by rags, but we have something they'll never have. And that summed it up really. All of a sudden I was thinking, oh right, so we do have something that you actually want that, you know, you've not got. And it was a really important thing for me, struggling to fit in down there, you know, at Cambridge, and kind of waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and throw me out. All of a sudden, that identity became something that they wished they could have. And, you know, I was really then bought into the Stone Roses, Happy Mondays, as you say, and it kind of helped me through really that period and gave me something that I kind of needed really to, you know, feel proud.
So, I mean, feeling Mancunian is one thing. I do feel Mancunian at times, but am I allowed to call myself a Mancunian? I'll have to check.
If I do, there'll be
I'll have to check with the authorities to figure it out. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But what I'd like to talk to you about as well is technology and how obviously you and I are both of a generation where we've kind of grown up through technology a little bit, I guess. And you know, I remember my first computer, a BBC Micro at school, and all that kind of thing. And the graphics weren't a thing when I first started using computers. But we've seen an incredible growth in technology, our mobile phones and social media connection and all those things. Are we in danger of suffering from that increase in technology, or are we going to be able to use it to our advantage?
Oh God, that is a big $1 million question, that, Colin. So bear in mind, the best way I can answer it, bear in mind I was in Parliament for 16 years. 8 pre-social media, 8 post-social media. All I can say is, well, what can I say? It was like playing croquet or bowls for 8 years, and then it was like turning to your sport, a bit of rugby union. All of a sudden, everything became brutal overnight, and you were getting banged from without knowing where from. And you know, it just changed the sport of politics fundamentally. You know, in quite a, as I say, quite a kind of challenging way. Now, some would say it's not all bad. You know, in that there needed to be more direct engagement and more challenge and more accountability from politicians, and it definitely brought some of that. And I think in the early days of social media, it kind of like improved it. But I remember being in the House of Commons once, and I remember, you know, somebody giving a speech that was like a bit OTT, you know, a bit exaggerated, and I sort of nudged the person I was doing, and said, what's going on there? Oh, it's for a clip for social media, isn't it? It was a moment of me thinking, God, is that now what it is? And I think that performative side of things has kind of come through, hasn't it? And people doing that without substance or, you know, following through. And so social media, and I do think there's been a darker turn on it all in recent times, you know, a more divisive sort of thing. The algorithm, what's the algorithm actually doing here? You know, in the pandemic, that became clearer to me, that people are being drawn into sort of paths that almost like a one-way street. You know, you're going down a path that gets darker and darker, more extreme. Someone said, you know, the business model of these organisations is to get more and more of your time in any given day, and the way they get that is more and more extreme content, and that pulls people more and more in. So it's quite a sinister thing, isn't it, when you think about it in that way. And I don't think social media was regulated properly at all at the time. And I think the same mistake must not be made with AI. AI could be brilliant and will be brilliant, I think, in terms of the amazing advances it will bring. But let's not let the content of creators just be, you know, hoovered up from them. Let's not let this create fakery that is just then off the scale and no one can tell anymore what's real and what's not. There's real dangers here. Harness the good, but learn the lessons of the social media revolution. We just let it wash over us, didn't we? And I don't think we were on the front foot enough.
I've always wanted to ask you this, actually, because I remember, obviously, sort of, I was part of your campaign team and stuff, and obviously the easiest campaign job ever, because re-electing you as mayor wasn't really that difficult as a campaign. We still had a lot of work to do, but what I've always wanted to ask you when I remember looking through stuff is, how do you let all that rubbish wash past you? Because there's a lot of idiots out there, and there's a lot of people really give you some stuff, you know what I mean, like both barrels. How does it not, does it affect you, or do you not let it, how do you do that? It's incredible.
I've been asked that question a lot over the years, and as a younger politician it was harder, because it used to come in the form of letters, you know, and that was harder. You open a letter and then you read it, someone has sat down and written this. Now and it's just someone just like, well, the press post or whatever. It's a bit different. However, there's a very simple answer to your question. Most of it is shite. Am I allowed to say shite on this podcast? Because it's just not true. It's a kind of propaganda sort of thing that they want to be true about you, or they're exaggerating something to make you look bad, and they're just coming from a position of anti you for whatever politics or whatever. I don't know. Said something wrong, or who knows why, or something going on in their life that means that they feel the need to, abuse somebody like me. So it's fine. That's how I deal with it, because I just say it's just pointless. It's just not true. Where things do land is where I know that I'm unsure about something I said, or something I'm not kind of resolved in my mind that I've got right. And if someone then hits a message like that, I don't mind that, because obviously they've picked up something. They've seen my uncertainty on a particular issue, or when I've spoken, they've realised I'm not, doing it in the way that I normally would. And they're making a criticism that often is valid, and those are important. I find that's why I say I don't see it all as bad, social media. It was more in the early days of Twitter. It was more like that. I think it's just gone a bit it's just gone massively sort of trolley and things like now. But in the early days, there was more people doing things like that, and I actually used it. I took it and drew from it and challenged myself and thought about things as a result of it. So yeah, that's how I would differentiate. There's an ocean of shite that you just have to go, that's that. But there is a sort of 5% of gems there that you've got to say, okay, so something is said that they've observed, and I know in my heart is a bit. So I hope that's how you deal with it, because you just differentiate the vast majority of it you write off, but you then you look at the stuff that you think, okay, there's something for me to address in that.
Yeah. So I'm conscious of time here as well, because we can't kidnap you and keep you here for the whole day. So, but we'd kind of like to finish off with sort of two questions, which is, if it wasn't politics, what would it be? What would you be doing? What's going to come next? I'm not going to get to give you an exclusive. Well, I'm going to hang up my mayor boots and whatever. But what else is there? Is there a career in DJing? Do you fancy?
I think I've run my DJing course. I think I've stretched it enough to breaking point. But I do it because I'm doing what I think should be in the job description of the Mayor of Greater Manchester: promote the place and everything that's about. Yeah. Enjoy the place, enjoy the people, enjoy the music. And I do, and I always have to. And I love Manchester music as much as I love Everton, and that's a big love of my life. Manchester music is a massive love of my life, and I embrace it, love it. It's been there all the way through my journey. Never stopped listening to it, and I love it now. Discovering the new stuff, I actually feel that's a part of my job. It's to be both love it from personally, but promote it as well. So what would I would love to be not a DJ. I'd love to be in a band. I think that's what they always say, don't they, that politics is show business for ugly people. I think we're all failed rock stars, I think, is what we are, aren't we? So that's me as well.
You play an instrument?
I can knock out, I can actually play guitar, yeah, but not quite a basic way, in a self-taught way, but I can knock out a few Pogue songs on a guitar when I've, when me and the family have had one or two together, and that will be my thing.
I'm going to make a note for Fran. We're going to get Andy Burnham on the guitar. Steve.
I'll beat the Mayor of Liverpool on that. We once were in an event together, and there was an impromptu band was formed, and he claimed he was a drummer, but I'm a better self-taught guitarer than he's a self-taught drummer.
We will let the people decide.
Yeah, but no, it's just about celebrating the whole identity of the Northwest, isn't it? And I would. If you ask me what would I want, my closest I got to anything was I was a Lancashire schoolboy cricketer, I played at Old Trafford 3 times. That was the closest I got to a sort of alternative life. But
okay, so a piece of viral, let's get him down the nets.
You can get me in the net. You can film me in the nets, and I was more a bowler but I can get him down. Let's get him down to Old Trafford, and we'll get him down to Emirates Old Trafford.
I used to
be in those nets many years ago.
Awesome. That is quality. I never knew that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then just one final thing. Obviously, we love an endorsement. I'm not going to pressure you into one, but if there was something that you could say about your time with us over the past couple of years, it's been a few years, and you've kind of seen us around, and we do lots of things. What's your impressions of us? What would you say to people that?
I would say highly professional. No, I mean it. You know, you in your game things change, and you know it's in terms of the events that you cover. But you're there, you respond. You're all of you, the team are brilliant to work with. You embody what Greater Manchester is about. You know, it's more than a business. It's a belief, I think, isn't it, in the place and what we're trying to build it into. So for me, that's that. You know, I always look for that in people. I look for it in organisations. I see it in you. I see it in your team. You know, people who go the bit further, they put a bit more in. You know, they care about it, and it's not just like a check. It's more than that. And
absolutely.
You embody that.
Yeah. No, that's a really kind thing to say. We appreciate that. Definitely. Thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
I've hit the time right on the button as well, which Jazz will be happy about because I'm always talking for too long. So
Colin,
Andy, thank you so much.
Thanks for everything.
Really appreciate it, man. Really, thank you.
With United We Stream, you were getting immediate reactions off people to the stream, the comments, like this is amazing, or the two Hacienda full-on streams, you know, like the 12-hour one or the 24-hour one. People were in their back gardens shouting to each other across the fence.
Our focus wasn't necessarily on the numbers, the views. Our focus with the Hacienda 24-hour thing was never let's get a big numbers, let's get over 1 million views. It was how do we communicate to an audience to stay at home during a New Year's Eve celebration, and how can we follow it around the world? But you were all in different locations.
We were all in different locations. There was loads of tech problems. Personally, I'd have gone, you know what? If I was in charge, I'd have gone, you know what? We're not doing it. But you were like, no, I think I can solve this. And you always find solutions to what needs to be done.
24-hour Graham Park special.
I'm up for that. Absolutely up for that.